Hello, everyone. My name is Reece. I'm a practicing attorney here in South Texas. And in this video, we're going to talk about starting your own law firm in 2026, taking it from someone who did start his own law firm in July of 2024 and has done fairly well since then. I want to talk about a few different topic areas that you can see here listed on the screen, but in case you're just listening, we're going to talk about who are the right candidates to open their own law firms, what some considerations about that. Let's talk about number two, practice areas for starting your own firm, for going out on your own. What are some common practice areas where that is done and where it's not done? We're going to talk about whether it's a good idea to incorporate your firm or to not incorporate. We're going to talk about, should I hire employees? Should I hire other attorneys? Should I go into business with other attorneys? We're going to discuss some of that. We're going to talk about how to open a trust account and an operating account that are in compliance with your jurisdiction. We're going to talk about how you file for an employee identification number with the IRS or an EIN number, why you should consider doing that. Number seven, we're generally going to talk about finances and what to expect there. Number eight, we're going to talk about whether you should purchase Westlaw, Lexis, kind of these expensive legal research tools, what's out there, and my experience with that. We're going to talk about networking in professional organizations and how you network, what kind of professional organizations, if you decide to go out on your own, how do I network? Get in how do I get in touch with professional organizations? Okay. We're going to talk about how to find steady work and clients. So now that you've decided, I don't want a boss, I want to work out on my own, you're still going to have bosses, so to speak. You're still going to have judges. You're still going to have clients. You're never going to be fully out of having someone that has authority over you. But if you don't want an actual boss, meaning you want to be your own man or woman, you want to have your own company. How do I find work? Number 11, let's talk about advertising. Do I think advertising is worth it? My thoughts on advertising. Of course, I don't have all the answers. Number 12, I want to talk about common daily tasks like downloading, filing, mailing, calendaring, and how it is so critical. Probably the number one skill starting your own law firm in 2026 is being very, very strongly organized. Number 13, we're going to briefly talk about continuing legal education, and different states and jurisdictions have certain requirements that you're going to have to meet. Number 14, we're going to talk a little bit about keeping yourself separated from you and your clients, a little bit about the morals and ethics, especially in your different practice areas. And number 15, we're going to talk a little bit about what are some of the most common grievances and kind of how you stay generally out of trouble with the state bar. Okay, guys, my name is Reece. I'm a practicing criminal defense and debt collection attorney here in South Texas. If you happen to know someone that's facing charges in the state of Texas and needs help, you can feel free to get in contact with me, okay? I started my own law firm in July of 2024 and have been in practice since October of 2022. So I am relatively new, but my company is we're coming on 1.5, nearing 2 years of existence, and I've done pretty well for myself. So I want to talk about these things, okay? So number one, who is the right candidate to open their own law firm? And this is, of course, going to depend on, did you just pass the bar? Did you recently become a practicing attorney, or have you been practicing for a very long time and you've decided that you want to go out on your own? So we're going to talk a little bit about the practice areas where you see a lot of solo practitioners. But generally, who should open their own law firm? Number one, your expenses in life should be low enough to where you can take an income hit. You can take an income hit for the foreseeable future when you go out on your own, because you don't know exactly when you go out on your own. You may not know exactly where your money's going to come from. So you want to make sure that you have pretty low expenses, or you have enough income savings built up that you're not going to be out on the street if you go out on your own. Personality wise, I would say you need to be the type of person that can go on your own initiative without having directive from a boss or a manager. Of course, when you're out on your own, you're still going to have court managers. You're still going to have people that are deciding what your schedule is going to be. But ultimately, the responsibility becomes much more on you, pretty much all on you. And so if you're just the type of person where you need to clock into work, you need to clock out, or you've been an associate attorney at a firm for so long that you don't really know how to just go out and get it done on your own, then it may not be for you. On the other hand, if you're the type of person where you feel like, hey, I don't agree with, this was kind of my case, I don't really agree with the way that things are being done at my firm, or at the district or county attorney's office that I'm working at. I don't really think that this procedure should be done this way. I don't really like having a boss. I don't like being told what to do, and I don't think I'm making enough money. I think I could make more money out of my own. Then that type of personality is going to be much more conducive to going out on your own. But you need to be really honest with yourself. If you need a 9 to 5 and you don't want work going home with you, if you want a very clear line between you working and you not working, then going out on your own and starting your own law firm may not be for you, and that's okay. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. One thing I will say is that if you want to go out on your own as an attorney in 2026, there will become virtually no distinction between you, the individual, and you, the attorney. You're just working all the time, and it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes a part of your core, the way you think. It influences how you think. It influences what you do. It influences everything about you. So if you are the type of person where you feel like there's a very strong personality that you have individually, outside of a work setting, and then there's you at work, meaning I have a job, but that job is not me, then starting your own law firm, becoming a solo practitioner is probably not for you. This is the kind of thing where I'm an attorney. It is what I am. It is who I am. It is the essence of my being. This is what I do, and that's kind of how you have to be, frankly. Practice areas for starting your own firm. So I am a criminal defense attorney. Okay. Some of the most common practice areas that you see for solo practitioners are going to be criminal defense, but you also see a lot of personal injury. Let me talk from my own experience about criminal defense and why I think that defense work is really one of those areas where you are likely to go out on your own. So first off, if you've never worked, like I have never been a prosecutor, I've never worked at a district attorney's office, but there's a lot of people out there that have been prosecutors, district attorneys, and if you're in that position where you've been a prosecutor, you've worked in your jurisdiction as a district attorney, then you're going to have a lot of experience there, and naturally, if you wanted to go out on your own for personal and business reasons, then criminal defense is just the same side. It's a different side of the same coin, so that kind of makes a lot of sense. The same token, if you've been working in personal injury for another firm for a long time, then going out on your own, you're going to have a lot of familiarity with that practice area, and it makes sense that you would stay in that same practice area. I think that complex civil litigation, so large contractual disputes, insurance, defense, these are going to be things where I think it's more difficult to go out on your own. Complex civil litigation, things that take a long time, a lot of man hours, a lot of work, because going out on your own in complex civil litigation, it's going to be more difficult in my opinion. So I think the ripe areas for going out and being a solo practitioner are contract work, criminal defense work, and personal injury, if you have familiarity with personal injury. Family is another good area, where especially if you have worked for another firm as a family practitioner and then you go out on your own, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. I'm really referring where I think it would be difficult is complex civil litigation, where you're dealing with insurance companies a lot. You're dealing with fact patterns that are years old, that are, large files, things that are not going to be, they're going to be continued a lot, really complex, where you probably need a whole team of lawyers and paralegals and staff. I think that's going to be more difficult to go out on your own. Okay, number 3, you're thinking about starting your own firm in 2026. You've either just passed the bar and you want to go out on your own, you never want to work for someone else, or you have been working for someone else and you want to go on your own. In my opinion, all right, of course this is not legal advice, and I'm not a licensed financial advisor either. I think you should incorporate. So whatever jurisdiction that you are practicing in, I incorporated, meaning I have a professional limited liability company. A lot of solo practitioners, a lot of attorneys don't, and that's just because there's a lot of protections for attorneys. That you're not facing quite as much liability risk as if you were running a different type of business. But nevertheless, do I think that the safest, the smartest, the most professional, cleanest way to start going out on your own, do I think you should incorporate? Yes, I think you should incorporate. The type of incorporation that you start, if you're an attorney in the state of Texas, for example, it should be a PLLC, professional limited liability company, or a PC, professional corporation. I do think that you should file articles of incorporation. You should become incorporated, and you want to keep business and personal completely separate. Okay. Number 4, should I hire employees? I think the answer to that for most solo practitioners just starting out is no. Employees are going to be very expensive. They're going to have a lot of needs. You're already going to be managing a lot of clients, a lot of cases, and payroll, employee expenses are some of the most expensive things that you can have. And of course, you're dealing with human beings. So no, I don't think you should, especially not right off the bat, unless you've got serious financing, you've got a lot of, you're very confident that you do want to have employees right off the bat. I would say no. All right. I do not think that you should hire employees right off the bat. As an attorney, I think starting your own firm, if you can go solo for a little bit and then add an employee if the task becomes such that you need employees. But I would not initially assume that I need employees. Number 5, let's talk about opening a trust and operating account that's in compliance with your local state bar. This is very simple. So once you file your articles of incorporation with your state, they're going to send you an identification number for your state, a taxpayer identification number for your state. I have one in the state of Texas, a franchise tax. Once you have that, you're then going to want to file for what's called an employee identification number. Basically, your company becomes a completely separate entity from you. You want to have separate bank accounts from you and your personal accounts at all times. You do not ever, ever, ever want to mix money that is yours and money that is your company's. For all intents and purposes, your company becomes a new person. Okay? So in order to open up, this is going to be different in different jurisdictions, but in Texas, you have to have what's called an interest on lawyer's trust account. And then also I would have an operating account. Most of your banks are going to be familiar with this process, but you just sign up for an IOLTA and an operating account. And again, always keep your business's money and your personal money. Never the two shall mingle. Ever. Not once. Ever. Number 7, let's talk about finances. Let's talk about, it's really difficult to get into the meat of, okay, how much money do I think that you could make as a solo practitioner just starting out versus a salaried employee? And it's so dependent on the jurisdiction that you're in and whether you're just starting out or you've had a lot of experience before. But let's talk a little bit about the common fee structures. Number 1, I do court-appointed work, and I also do contract work. So what does that mean? For the most part, I make money on a fixed basis, and I don't have to do a lot of hourly billing. I do have to do some in certain cases, but for the most part, I don't. That makes my life a lot easier, but it's going to depend on where you are and what you're practicing in. A contingency fee is where you are fronting the filing fees, the expenses, pretty much everything, depositions. You're taking on all the cost up front, and then you charge 30 or 40% of whatever the gross settlement is, and you take that in on contingency. Now, what's the obvious thing with this? You're not getting paid up front. If you are starting your own company as a solo practitioner, if you are in the personal injury space, which is the most common for contingency fees, is personal injury. If you are familiar with that, and that's really what you want to do, that's a lot of attorneys. That's one of the other common areas where people go out solo. But I would say it's risky. It's very risky because you're going to need a lot of money up front. You're going to need financing, which probably means for most of you debt. Okay. If you, on the other hand, if you can go out into, let's talk about kind of how I am doing it. I have done it, and now I am doing it. I'm practicing. Um, I personally think that even sacrificing some amount of income, potentially making less money, but having guaranteed money, having safe money, is better than riskier money. So I really, for a lot of you that are considering starting your own law firm in 2026, consider contract work. I do contract debt collections. There are different companies out there. They're really easy. You just sign up, you get paid, and then you're done with the case. Your obligations with the case are concluded. Um, are you making millions doing that? No, but it's guaranteed money. Number two, getting paid by insurance companies. Insurance companies have the money. All right, Allstate, State Farm, Progressive, USAA, they actually have the liquid assets and the money to pay you. You need to know where your money is coming from. You need to know that whoever you're getting money from actually has the money. And that's why getting paid by a county or by the state government, they have a tax base. Although there was recently like a halting in payments to federal public defenders. The really nice thing about doing court-appointed work is that you know the county has the money. You know the county is going to pay you. They may not pay you the same amount of money that private clients would pay you, but you know they're going to pay you. Whereas one of the things that you're going to find when you become a solo practitioner and you're considering taking on private clients for any kind of matter, whether it's criminal defense or civil litigation, most people are not good for the money. That's just how it is. You need to become savvy to that. If you are a criminal defense attorney, if you are starting out your own firm in criminal defense, I highly recommend that you get as much money up front as possible. I'm not saying everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and I will defend anyone accused of a crime. All right? We all have the same rights. But you need to be aware these are typically people that don't have the money and they're not good for the money. You must get your money up front, even if it means making less money. There are certain companies out there that are offering litigation financing and putting people on payment plans. If you can find a way to make payment plans work for people, that's okay. I highly, highly advise that you get as much of your fee up front as possible. Most people do not have much money. That's what you need to know about private clients. Whereas if you can make money somehow from an insurance company or from the government, you know they're good for the money. Okay, you know the government's good for the money, and you know that a big, huge insurance company is good for the money. And you know that if you're contracting for a private company, then you know they're good for the money. If you're doing work for another law firm, but on a contract basis, generally speaking, you know they're good for the money. Where you need to be really careful, in my opinion, okay, is when you get private, everyday, Joe Blow, Cindy Lou, whoever, if you get private clients, get as much of the fee up front as possible because people are going to end up owing you money. Be very, very careful of payment plans. Very, very careful with payment plans with private clients because most people just don't have the money. Okay, so that's that. In terms of your finances, when you go out on your own, you're probably going to be getting what's called 1099s. Your taxes are not withheld. You need to be very, very careful with your accounting, very organized in your accounting. We'll talk a little bit about taxes. I pay quarterly self-employed estimated taxes. It's very difficult to know exactly how much money you're going to make, but you still pay your quarterlies. Try not to get behind on your taxes. Make sure that if you expect that you're going to make $100,000 to $120,000 at the end, about 10% of all the money you make is going to go towards taxes. So that's kind of the 10 to 15%, generally speaking. Okay. Let's talk about legal research. There are different legal research providers, Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg. I use Lexis. Do I think that a solo practitioner needs a Lexis subscription? Really depends on the practice area that you're in. I think for the most part they are a good thing to have. They are deductible on your taxes, meaning they can lower your overall income, but they are very freaking expensive. And after my 5-year contract is up with Lexis, I'm not even sure I'll resubscribe. They're so expensive. There are free alternatives out there But if you're practicing in personal injury or civil litigation and you're using a lot of case law all the time, and then the case law changes and you need to cite, you need to be able to print out case law, then yeah, you should probably get. I would recommend Lexis over Westlaw. I like Lexis a lot more. Most of my fellow law students in law school preferred Westlaw. They're more expensive, and I think Lexis has a better user interface. Um, so I personally prefer Lexis. Okay, let's talk about networking and professional organizations. So, um, when you start your own law firm in 2026 or whenever you start it, but we'll say 2026, networking is the number one skill, that an organization. Okay, but networking is probably the number one skill that you need to succeed starting your own company. You make money in the end. A lot of the work that I have done has been referred to me by other attorneys. This is a relational industry. And what that means is that the money that you make, the success that you have, and we're basing that on money, so the money that you make is totally dependent on your ability to network. You know, learn to become exceedingly polite with court staff, even though it can be tough. And sometimes I even become lax on that, but you need to put yourself out there. You need to be going to bar meetings, meetings of your local state bar. You need to be introducing yourself, especially to other attorneys. It's a small knit community. You need to be networking all the time, putting your number out there. One thing I didn't mention is that you should probably get a second phone number, even if it goes to your same device, for your business. So it's a very good idea for you to get a business phone number. You also, some things that you're going to need, basic office supplies. You need to buy a printer, you need to buy stationery, and you need to go to your local print shop or go online. You need business cards. This is after you've opened your bank accounts, you've filed for your articles of incorporation, so you've got your own company now. Your own company has a trust account. It's got an operating account. I would highly recommend getting a private mailbox or a PO box, or if you have an office, I would not use your personal address. So there's that, right? You are going to need some basic things. If you are starting as a solo practitioner, I would try to minimize the amount of paper that you're using. Try and do as much electronic as possible. Okay. When you're dealing with paper, things get lost. And especially if you're on your own, you don't have a paper filing system. We're in the 21st century. You got to try and do as much electronic as possible, although you'll find there's still a lot of paper being used. So you're going to need paper, you're going to need a printer, you're going to need pens, you're going to need business cards, you're going to need a filing cabinet, even though, like I said, you try and keep as many things electronic as possible. Okay. I'm a member of what's called the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. It's TCDLA. And I'm a member of a few other, obviously the State Bar of Texas and certain other professional organizations. And if you're going to start your own company, your own firm in 2026, you got to do the same. You got to put yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you're introverted, even if it's not something that you want to be doing, you have to. You must network in your legal community. The legal community can be very insular. It can be very circular. You've got to be in that circle. You got to be putting your name out there. You got to be handing other attorneys your business card and saying, "Hey, if you got extra work, send it my way. You got clients you don't want to, you want to refer out. Feel free to refer them out to me." You got to be doing these things. Okay. How do I do this? How do I do that? What did you do in this case? Hi, my name is Joe. My name is Susie. I just started my own law firm. Help me out. I don't know. But you got to put yourself out there, and you got to be going to networking events. So if your local bar or legal organization is having a night out, go to it. Go to it. You don't have to stay the whole time, but you got to be seen. You have to see others, and they must see you. That's just how it is. You got to network. Okay. How to find steady work and clients. Highly recommend court appointments in your local area for criminal defense work, but there's also what's called ad litems, where you can do work for the court on civil cases, civil matters, and you can get paid for doing that. So court-appointed work can be steady, it can be reliable, and you know when you're getting paid by the taxpayer, you're going to be paid. All right, and crime is never going away. So it's one thing you want to think about when you are going into a profession is crime's never. I mean, crime's never going away. So you know there's always going to be people charged with crimes that need lawyers. One thing to think about. Whereas the personal injury, people are always going to get hit by cars. So there's always work there. Just again, I say court appointed and then contracted work is some of the easiest work that you can get into. I mean, not the easiest, but the lowest bar to entry and reliable. Number 11, advertising. I just use word of mouth. I think word of mouth is the strongest system that you can have. It has the highest conversion rate. I'd be very weary of using like a legal match or any other company that offers to find you work. I would be very wary of that. All right, so you've started your own firm. What are some of your most common daily tasks that you're going to find yourself doing over and over and over and over again? Number one, you're going to be downloading Discovery. So whether you get that Discovery on a CD, USB, Blu-ray disc, or you get it through an electronic transfer, whether you're in civil work or you're in criminal defense or both, Discovery, Discovery, Discovery. You're going to be getting medical bills, records, police reports. You're just going to be downloading all the time. Number two, you're going to be filing. Okay, you got to make sure every day, did I download? Did I file? Did I mail? Did I make client calls? Okay, you're going to be doing these day in, day out. You're going to be filing things. So what do I mean by filing? You're going to be both filing things with the court, meaning usually e-filing. You're also going to be filing into your own electronic organization. Okay, a lot of people use Dropbox. I use OneDrive. You're going to need one of the two. You're going to need to have OneDrive or Dropbox. I can't think of any other file system. There are case management systems out there. MyCase, Clio, Practice Panther. I don't use those because I don't feel like I need them, but they can be very useful. You're always going to be downloading. You're always going to be filing all the time. You're always going to be mailing letters all the time. You're going to be calendaring all the time. Staying organized from the very beginning is absolutely critical, especially if you're doing court-appointed work, especially if you don't know how much work you're going to get. Sometimes it can become a lot. If you do not have an organization system of some time, you are not going to swim, you're going to sink. You've got to be organized. I would say skill number one is networking. Skill number two is organizing. If you're just not a highly organized person, you probably shouldn't start your own law firm. You're going to need a OneDrive, a Dropbox. Each and every case is going to have to be filed. You're going to have a repeatable filing system for like administrative, discovery, evidence, videos, filings. You are going to need that. Calendaring. You can use Google Calendar. I use iCalendar, which is on my phone. All right. Calendar things immediately. If you have a hearing, calendar it immediately. Do not wait. Calendar your tasks immediately upon receipt. It's very difficult. I know it gets tedious. I'm aware of that. But if you want to make the big money, this sounds really stupid, but it's true. Just organizing is absolutely, I would say, skill number two, just behind networking. If you become disorganized, it's going to be a disaster for you. So every single day you started your own company, you want to think to yourself, have I downloaded all the discovery that I have available to me? Have I downloaded today? Filing. Okay. Is there something that I could be filing right now that I have not filed? Just think to yourself, go down this checklist. Downloading. Did I download all the discovery that I think I needed to download? Okay, check all your cases. Number two, filing. Did I miss any e-filings today? Should I be drafting a motion? Should I be drafting a notice, a request? Did I internally, meaning take from my email and put it into my OneDrive, did I file everything I need to file? Is there any mailings that I'm missing? Do I need to send out letters, certified letters? Did I miss anything in the mail? Calendar. Did I calendar all of my hearings so if I can see if I have any conflicts, if I need to file motions to continue? You got to calendar all the time immediately. So downloading, calendaring, filing. These are just things that you're going to be doing literally all the time. Number 13, continuing legal education. Every single state that I'm aware of is going to have CLE requirements. You got to stay on top of that. Number 14, keeping yourself separated from your clients. Let's talk a little bit about morals and ethics, especially if you're a criminal defense attorney, but really for all types of attorneys. You are not your clients, okay? This is going to be my short ethical talk. You are obligated to zealously defend your clients and no more. They are ultimately responsible, even if they're juveniles, they're ultimately responsible for their own decisions. That's one thing that you need to remember. It's very, very easy to become overwhelmed by clients. I should definitely talk a little bit about client management. You are not a therapist. Let's talk a little bit about client management. Number one, every time that you get a new client or a new appointment, you need to make a client call. That's one of the things I should have put on my daily tasks, which is client calls. Okay, you're going to be on the phone a lot. If you don't have an unlimited phone plan, you should get an unlimited phone plan. You're going to be on the phone all the time. Your phone is going to become attached to you like super glue. Okay, you are going to become on the phone literally all the time. If you're a criminal defense attorney, you need to advise your clients of their hearing dates, of their rights, what they've been charged with, the range of punishment. If you're a civil attorney, there's different things you're going to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about how to answer the phone, okay? Say I pick up the phone. I say, Ringnauld Law, that's my name. Law office, this is Reece. How may I help you? Every single time. Don't answer the phone like, you got to make it really neutral, and just like you're picking up there, people get used to hearing from big companies. This is law office, so-and-so speaking. How may I help you? Okay? Get used to doing that over and over. Train yourself. This is so-and-so, law office. How may I help you? You're going to be on the phone all the time. Okay? So we talked a little about that. Client expectations. Let's talk about what clients expect from you. Clients generally want from their attorneys more than their attorney can actually offer. So it is better to always undersell rather than oversell. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Never promise your client ever in any practice area. Never promise your client a certain outcome. Do not promise that they're going to win their case. Do not promise that they're not going to prison. Do not promise that there won't be consequences for their offense. Do not promise anything. All right? Be very, very careful. You only promise people, I will work for you. I will represent you to the best of my ability. That's it. That's all you promise. Never promise an outcome ever. The number one thing with clients is you tell them what you have to tell them. You be direct about it. You keep in contact with them. But I highly recommend do not become friendly or friends with your clients. Okay? There is a barrier between you, the lawyer, and your clients as people, and you can think that they're wonderful people, terrible people, whatever. You are there to offer a professional service. That's it. Nothing more. Because it can become very, the number, like the different ways that people get in trouble in their practices, that they tank, is by one of the ways that they do that is they remove the professional barrier and they become friendly with their clients. Well, number one, that's how you don't get paid. People pay, they're used to paying for things, but, I don't pay my brother, I don't pay my sister, I don't pay my friend. No, he just does things for free, right? No, you are an attorney, you're offering a professional service. That's it, okay? That's the bottom line, and you expect to be paid for your work. Be very careful about taking calls after 5 p.m., taking calls on the weekends. Pretty much unless, even I've had a client call me and he was literally getting surrounded by the police and a warrant was being issued. They were executing a warrant for his arrest. Even then, what are you going to do for him? Go show up on site and argue with the police? No, I don't think so. All right. So I would just put your phone on Do Not Disturb once like 5 p.m., 5:30 maximum hits, that phone, you got to put barriers between yourself and your clients. Okay. They can't call you all hours of the day, on the weekends, anytime they want. And you can explain that to your clients as well when you get them. Listen, I'm not taking calls on the weekends. I'm not taking calls after 5, not taking calls before 9 unless you've got a hearing scheduled that day. Um, you got to do it. You got to do it because people will absolutely take advantage of you. They will absolutely not think about you as a person. You are just a means to an end, right? Their loved one's in trouble. They're out. They're out of money. They're fighting over money, or they're fighting for their freedom, or their husband's incarcerated. Whatever it is. Um, they feel like whatever issue they have is all that matters, and you are not going to get any consideration whatsoever. Because you're not really a person to them. You're a means to an end. Okay, you're the guy that answers questions. You're the guy that gets me deals. You're the guy that gets me the money. That's it. Okay, so you've got to put those barriers between yourself and your clients, and it gets really, when you're out on your own, it can get really difficult to do that. There is nothing in the state bar of Texas or whatever jurisdiction you're in that says you got to take calls after 5 p.m. That's not reasonable, and you don't have to. So that's that. All right. One other thing I want to talk about on the daily tasks is emails. When you go out on your own, you're going to be checking your email about 50,000 bazillion times a day. Make sure that you are promptly responding to emails. One thing that you should become adept with is respond to emails shortly, concisely, and with no more information than you have to give. Just, yes, I'm available. No, I'm not available. Don't overly embellish emails. Assume that all of your emails are going to be read out loud in court, because sometimes they do. Don't ever put anything in writing that you would not want read out loud in court. Don't call the other guy son of a gun or whatever. Don't insult anyone over email. You are now a kind of a tracked individual. Anything you say, kind of like Miranda, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As an attorney starting your own firm, your reputation is everything. Your reputation precedes you. Your reputation determines how much money you make. Your reputation determines your quality of life. It determines your success. Do not put anything in email that you are not ready for a judge to read out loud in court, for a prosecutor to read out loud in court, for opposing counsel to read out loud in court. Okay? Nothing. Be very careful what you write in emails. Also, I hate to say this, but I would also become very, very careful about what you write, period. Even text messages to loved ones, colleagues, because when you start to have money and you start to have success, people will come after you. They will sue you. They will find reasons to try and go after what you have, period. That's just the bottom line. If you've got something nasty to say or something uncomfortable to say, or you've got to get a big conflict resolved, highly recommend that you do that in person or over the phone. Second, don't send an email that you don't want written in open court. I would also advise, even to your own spouse, probably be very careful with the text messages. Also be very careful with text messages with your clients, especially. Even though they do have attorney-client privilege with you, you don't know who's reading their messages. And most people are getting, even if you are their lawyer and they should be getting their advice from you, they're asking other people at the jail, they're asking their friends, they're asking everybody other than who they should be asking, which is you. And other people are probably reading their text messages. So you don't really know where your text messages are going. You don't know whose eyes are going to be on those text messages. Same thing with emails. Even if you send it to a certain person, you don't exactly know who all's eyes are going to be on the screen, and you don't know how they're going to interpret the words that you're saying. Sometimes it can be good. Sometimes it can be bad. You don't know. Highly recommend that you get used to picking up the phone, talking to people over the phone so they can hear your voice, they can hear your intonation. That sort of thing. Be very, very careful. This is kind of the bottom line. Be extremely careful what you write down with your own company, with your own law firm especially, be very careful what you put in writing, period, ever. Okay. How to stay out of trouble with the state bar. This is number 16. The number one path or method by which bar complaints on attorneys are filed is my attorney never talked to me. My court-appointed lawyer never talked to me. He never went to the jail. He never even called me, never sent me a letter. I hired this personal injury firm, and my lawyer never came in contact with me. Really stupid, and it is really stupid. And a lot of people that are disbarred or facing grievances from the state bar, a lot of it can be so easily prevented. I don't care if your client is the most irritating. I mean, I deal with actual meth addicts. I mean, I assure you I have dealt with difficult people and people that you don't want to talk to, frankly. You have to go. You've got to talk to your clients. You've got to make the client calls. They're one of your daily tasks. Did I download all the discovery I need? Did I make my client calls? Did I check my emails? Did I file, mail, did I mail, did I calendar? Okay, file, mail, calendar, download, client calls, email checking. It's like all of what you do all the time. Okay, you got to get in contact with your clients. If you got to go to the jail, you got to go to the jail. If you got to send letters, you got to send faxes, you got to send them a telegram. The number one way that you see attorneys get in trouble with the state bar is I never even talked to my lawyer. Really stupid sounding, but it's true. Number 2, your client's money is your client's money until it is not their money, and there's better be all kinds of paperwork. Money, money, money. Never represent someone for any purpose ever without a written contract ever. Ever. For any reason. Even if it's your best friend since you and he or she were like 2 years old, you were in the freaking same crib together, and you grew up in the same house, and I know his family and I know her family, and we've been friends since the day we came out of the womb. When money gets involved, people will turn on you, and you got to keep it in writing every single time. Never represent someone without a written contract, and without that written contract very specifically saying, these are the payment terms, this is how I get paid, this is my scope. The most important things are scope of representation and payment terms, meaning I am representing you to draft this will. I'm going to draft a will for you. Now, I'm a lawyer, and I could also represent you on your DWI, but no. You can talk about that in a separate matter, but this contract for this service, for this money, these dollars are going to drafting you a will and nothing else. It better be in writing, and it better be in like all caps, red, bolded, underlined. No one should have any confusion about what you are there to do and what you're being paid to do. Because as soon as there's any kind of confusion, well, I thought that I could hire you for this, or I thought you were doing that. Next thing you know, you're facing a grievance. Whereas if you have a contract and it's executed by both parties and it very clearly says, no, Your Honor, or State Bar Grievance Committee very clearly says in my signed and executed contract that I have a limited scope of representation and this is what I'm paid to do. And that's what I did. So never do anything that is not in writing. Okay? Like we talked about before, you also want to be very careful about what you write. Okay? So it's the same thing with your fee representation contracts. In general, let's talk about some other general pieces of advice before I end this video. To go back to the most important skill set that you need, it's definitely networking. Okay? Definitely networking is like number 1. Number 2, and right up there with networking is organization. If you are disorganized, all of a sudden you get a flood and life becomes so much more difficult. Okay? You gotta calendar right away. Number 3, call your clients. Go to the jail or send them a letter, send them a fax, send them a carrier pigeon. The people that you represent need to know who you are and what you're doing, and never do anything that's not in writing. Be very careful about what you're writing and to whom you're writing. Who has the money? If you're thinking about how do I get paid, You get paid by companies. You get paid by the government. You get paid by wealthy individuals, I guess. Be very, 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 exceedingly very careful about receiving payment directly from private individuals. Why? Most people are in debt or they have no money to pay you. That's just the facts. And if you're going to take payment from a private individual, that's fine. That's what most attorneys do. Get as much payment up front as possible. Be very careful about payment plans. Okay? Be very careful about payment plans. I think that flat fees or earned upon receipt fees are far superior. Far superior. Even if you have to make less money, getting it up front is way better. Okay. I think that pretty much covers it for starting your own law firm in 2026. Again, my name is Reece. Is there anything else that I wanted to talk about? It kind of goes into, let's talk a little bit about taxes. I did kind of briefly mention this. You need a mileage app. I use an app called called Stride. Okay. That tracks my mileage. Okay, guys, that's most of what I could think about. If you want a part 2 about how to start your own law firm in 2026, send me a message, leave a comment, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.